Hi everyone, welcome to our Beelong Festival podcast. I am absolutely thrilled to welcome Manchester's resident positivity expert, Kate Cocker. Thank you so much, Kate, for joining me today. When we were planning the festival, we were thinking of lots of different ways in which we could engage people. And we wondered if a podcast might be a nice thing for people to listen to while they were in their car or while they were at home or in the garden or just doing some jobs. And so thank you so much for agreeing to come and talk to us about how we can stay positive during these unprecedented times. So welcome, Kate. And my first question to you is, how's lockdown been for you, being a positivity expert?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me and thank you for having me on. And podcasting is great. So the reason I know that is because I do a podcast myself called Everyday Positivity, which means I spend every day wanging on about positivity in some way, shape or form. And so how's lockdown been for me? Lockdown for me has been, I think, the same as it's been for everybody, really challenging. Really surprising, really catching you out in a way that you weren't expecting it to catch you out. And I sort of maneuver myself between feeling absolutely flat to feeling, oh goodness, isn't it great that I get to spend more time with my family? And isn't it great that I found new ways to communicate with people? And isn't it great that the relationships that really matter have shone through, and all of those things as well? And I think the thing that's made it really difficult is that, we've collectively are feeling a bit all over the place. And I think that's really the key thing. And I know that we're feeling that because the people in the group, we've got the Positivity Facebook group. So Everyday Positivity with Kate Cocker is the Facebook group. And there are about 6,000 people in that group now. And then the daily podcast that goes out as a flash briefing and through Volley FM, which is an app that you can get, and on Spotify as a podcast, or you can get it everywhere as a podcast.
Which I love. And which is where I first heard you, actually, was on the Daily Positivity flash on
Flash
Spotify.
briefing,
Yeah, I love it.
So And it's only 2 minutes long, and it's designed to just give you a little bit of a boost. So often I'm like, try this today, or try that today, or remember this today, or remember to be kind to yourself today. And that's all I think people need, is just a little 2-minute reminder to be kind to themselves. And so in this time, people have reached out to me, and that's been really useful as someone who puts those things out into the world, because I've got a real sense for how people are feeling, and a real sense for that kind of curve of how people have been feeling as well.
And how are people feeling? I think I know how I'm feeling sometimes. Sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I feel so many emotions all at the same time. And I find as well that I can feel one way in the morning, then another way the next hour. And then days can sometimes seem so long.
Yeah, they can. So initially, and most often, actually, it's the thing that people are reaching out for is, how do I manage my anxiety? Mm-hmm. So especially in the early days, as we went into lockdown, that was a huge change. That was like within a week, our lives reversed on their heads. And we had this kind of, I don't want it to sound dramatic, but it's that kind of death at our door type of thing. Like people just didn't know how to cope with that vast change.
And I think we can't underestimate how huge this has been. Yeah. I think the minute we try and tell ourselves that we're all right and that maybe we should be coping with this, I think that's when we need to stop and just look at what's happened to us. And absolutely. Say that, all of us now, what we all have in common is we now have all been through something incredibly traumatic to some degree or another.
Yeah, absolutely. And everybody deals with it in their own entirely different way as well. Yeah. So, it's what this has done is it really magnifies areas of your life. So it magnifies, like, almost, I think, I don't want to say the tough stuff, but it does magnify the tough stuff. It's magnified situations that within households that we didn't realize were there, or we knew were there but we didn't want to deal with. For businesses, I work with a lot of businesses as well, and a lot of them are saying, I was planning on doing this anyway, but this has now made me do it. So it's just magnified and put pressure on these areas, which means that we have to magnify our strategies for coping. When I talk about positivity, I'm really clear about talking about positivity, and having a positive mindset isn't about pasting a smile over the cracks of life. It's about giving yourself the strategies and resilience to cope with the cracks of life. It's about knowing that you can cope with the cracks of life. And hey ho, we are in one big crack of life. And so all the things I talk about in terms of keeping that positive mindset isn't about going, oh my goodness, everything's okay and I'm going to ignore everything. And it's absolutely about going, actually, this is a bit rubbish, and life can be rubbish sometimes, and that's okay. And if we don't acknowledge those things, then we can't move forward, change, and grow.
And that's been a really interesting conversation to have in school with the key worker children, but also as we start welcoming back year 10 and reassuring them that if, it's okay to, if someone says, oh, hi, you all right? And you're like, yeah, I'm fine. You don't have to say that, because it's kind of fine, but not fine, you know. And as I said earlier, if we keep pretending nothing's weird, then we'll get that terrible disconnect of reality and how we feel about it and how we think we should be.
You have to really get it wrong to get it right sometimes. And not sometimes, all the time. If you're not getting it wrong, you're not moving forward. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I do think it is really about accepting the now, accepting, I don't feel great. Like, I haven't felt great. I mean, every Thursday, for some reason, without fail, I get to Thursday and I'm not myself. I'm out of sorts. I'm tired. I need a nap. And I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it at all.
And my day is Friday. Yeah. More arguments happen in this house on a Friday, and I feel more rubbish on a Friday. Yeah. And so it's funny, isn't it, that I wonder if everyone's kind of fallen into a kind of pattern and having to manage their energy really carefully.
Yeah, definitely. And it's that thing of, so I keep getting to the Thursdays, but then I'll go, right, what do I need to do now? What strategy do I need to deploy this week to make sure that next Thursday doesn't quite feel the same? And actually, I'm now getting to the point where I go, maybe the strategy is not having much to do on a Thursday. Because actually on a Thursday, that seems to be the day that by Thursday afternoon, I'm exhausted. I mean, I went to bed, like, we're recording this on a Friday. Mm-hmm. And last night, which was Thursday, I went to bed at 8:30 because I just got to the end of the day and I was exhausted. And I just thought, I'm going to just go to bed. And I feel great today because of it. But that's the reality. That's my reality. And that's the work that I'm doing in terms of how can I be okay on a Thursday, so I'm not taking it out on the kids or I'm not taking it out on the family. And I've got those strategies in place.
It's so useful to hear that from someone whose job it is to teach people how to be positive. Because I loved what you said earlier about how positive is a skill. You kind of have to learn it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you get good at what you practice, right? So you get good at what you practice. And so if you're in the habit, habits aren't things that we form. Habits are already things that we have. If you're in the habit of something happening and you beat yourself up for it, or your self-talk says, oh, well, you always do that sort of thing. That's what you become. If you practice that kind of self-talk, then that's what you become. So actually, there are skills that you can put into place, and there are strategies that you can put into place, or there are a set of them that you can put into place if you choose to, I should say, because it's, as I said, these are all different for everybody. But if you practice them, then you can help. I always say there's almost like a long-term and a short-term solution to every problem. Like, there's the short-term solution, which is try this, that'll get it better right now. But actually most problems can be solved with a bit of long-term solution. So for example, if you've had an argument with someone, it's probably because you're not getting enough sleep, and that's the long-term solution, isn't it? It's like, I need to practice getting rest. I need to practice getting sleep. So that's where, I've developed those 7 pillars of positivity that really help you to understand why positivity is a skill and how you can then practice it as a skill.
I can't wait to hear about the 7 pillars of positivity, because I wonder if that might actually be quite useful as 7 things you can you can actually
practice.
practice.
Yeah.
Before we go there, though, I was wondering, we've touched on a little bit about family relationships. And
Yes.
I was just wondering, speaking from personal experience, but also on behalf of perhaps a nation, how do we keep our family relationships positive during this time where I'm just so aware that different families have been through so many different things.
Yeah.
I wonder if what we have in common again is that we all do have to work on our relationships.
Yeah.
And how do we do that, Kate?
Well, there's lots of different answers to that, isn't there? As I said, like everybody that has to find their way of dealing with things. Our physical environment has changed. So we have all gone from going to work, going to school, to everybody being at home, or some people being at home and some people being at work, but it's changed. Whatever it is, it's changed. If you live alone, you're really on your own now, or have been through a period of time where you're really on your own. Obviously, that's all changed because we can now start seeing each other again if we're in a single household. Or if you're a family that live apart, that's going to have magnified or really focused in on those sort of relationships and how those are all functioning in that environment as well. So everything changed. But I'm going to go down the line of everything's changed, so we're all on top of each other a little bit more. And I think that's what we're talking about when we're talking about that kind of family environment or people being all together. And so what I've noticed is the number one thing that has happened is our boundaries have changed. So it's funny, isn't it? Boundaries are such a big thing. So in the olden days, my boundary was I'd get home from school at 6 o'clock. It would be cheaper to phone my friends. So I'd pick up the phone at 6 o'clock, and at 9 o'clock, that free thing would end and I'd stop. So there's my boundary. I had a 3-hour window or whatever it was window, and that boundary was placed on me. The boundaries that we experienced before lockdown were we go to school at 8:30, and that was one boundary. And we get to school and we do all the things that we do at school, and then at 3:30 we're home again, or 2:45 or whatever it is every time we leave, we leave and we're home, and then we're into home world, and that has all blurred. And so that itself has an intensity, which is probably why by Thursday I'm feeling tired and by Friday you're having a bad day as well. But let me get to my point. We have to respect that in each other. So number one, I would say have workspace if you can, have eating space if you can. Try, if you can, have space where the kids are working. I'm up my living room now, and in the evenings, this is my son's living room because he basically comes and plays on the Xbox in here. And it had been like that forever, and we were rarely using this room. My husband is now using what is my office. The kitchen I was trying to work in, and it was doing my head in because everyone was asking me questions. So then I basically commandeered the living room with a small desk and my laptop. So we've created spaces. So we've kind of put those physical boundaries in. One of the first rules I made was for my 11-year-old daughter, which was there are going to be breaks in the day. And at 10:45, that's when you can ask me questions. I was like, if you have any questions before 10:45, write them down. And that was before funny. I got into the living room. Yeah.
Yeah. The boundaries we often have to impose ourselves.
Yes.
To stay sane.
We're not built for that. Like in general, we will do what is easiest. And it's not easy to say to someone, no, I need you to back off now. I need you to go away, and I need you to be somewhere else because I need my own time. And so imposing those boundaries is something that we find really difficult.
It's also, just to flip that, I think it's also very difficult to reach out and say, I'm actually, those horrible things like I'm actually lonely.
Yes.
I need some conversation. I need some company. I think that's hard as well.
Yeah. And that's why. So I talk a lot about creating space. And actually, I think when you hear people say, create a routine, get a schedule, with that comes all the pressure of I've got to stick with this schedule. We definitely did that at the beginning ourselves. Like we were trying to stick to this ridiculous schedule that I thought I'd put together. No, it was useless. But to have some sort of points in your day that are designed for things. So we have an 8:45 meeting every morning as a family, and that's all we do. That's the one thing we have in the day. It means everyone is out of bed. They're not always dressed, but everyone is out of bed, and we talk about what we're doing that day. And then the next day we go, right, what did you do yesterday and what we're doing that day? My daughter and I go for a walk twice a week. We borrow a dog and we walk a dog, and we've continued that. And that's my example of creating space for relationships. So we are very good at sticking to that. She gets very frustrated if we don't do it. we rarely ever talk about any problems, but when she needs to talk about a problem, that's when it comes out. So when we talk about boundaries, we're not talking about restrictions. We're talking about put that in, put that in, put that in, put that in, and consistently stick to it, because it just helps you to create that space to be positive, to discover that you're not feeling great, to discover that you are feeling great, to discover that you've got time to talk. So and you know, that's a long-term solution with my daughter. If I knew she had a problem and I went, right, let's go for a walk, she'd be like, you're on to me, back off. Whereas because we're walking, she just talks.
One of my daughters, the minute I ask a question like, and how are you really feeling? One of them is like, oh, mum, you know, I don't want to talk about that. But then exactly that, maybe if I take away from this conversation that I need to make some space, and maybe that will be a more natural way to talk with her.
Well, it's like at work as well. Like when I started in my job as a radio producer, the company that I went into were really good with their like coaching and everything. And they'd created this culture where it was absolutely mandatory that your boss had a one-to-one meeting with you every week. And since then, I've not worked in businesses the same, but it was absolutely revolutionary, because if you meet with someone once a week, it might only be for 20 minutes. But if they've got an issue, that's when they can bring it up. As a manager, you know, you've opened that door, you've got, right, is there anything you need to talk about? And you've created that space where people can actually talk. You know, it's the Love Island thing. I always laugh at Love Island. On Love Island, they do the thing that you can never do in an open office, which is they walk up to someone and go, can I have a quick word? And it's like, those words put the fear of God in me in an open office as a manager as well, to go to someone, can we have a quick chat? It's like everyone else goes, oh, they're in trouble. You know, whereas if you've got that weekly meeting in place, you've got that space to talk. And I think in families, and I don't think you can be quite as rigid as on 3 o'clock, Sam, we're going to go for a walk every week. But it's actually creating that space. And actually, it could be that space has been created by accident, because it's the trip to and from football on Saturday, and in the car, that's where the conversation happens. So I think as parents, it's a good idea to kind of sneakily, if you can, create space for those relationships to be able to happen, and equally respect the space of each other. So my son Louis, he's a growing lad, he's tired, so yes, he'll meet me at 8:45, and yes, he might be up late with his mates, but if he needs to sleep in the afternoon, he can go and have a sleep in the afternoon, because I respect the fact that that's what he needs, and I'm not going to hound him for that. And that actually then helps him work the next day. So it's creating space and respecting space, really, I think, are probably the two things for families.
And well, I was also thinking for people who perhaps are on their own, or if there's just two of them, or maybe with housemates, I think that still works, that idea of creating space.
Yeah,
I think
it does.
I've just talking to you, I feel like I want to kind of go back to my family and have a look at how we can do things better. I was wondering if you could talk me through your 7 pillars, because again, as we keep saying, positivity is a skill, and these are 7 ways that you know we can practice it.
Yeah, so I'm very keen on this idea that you know, if you put these things into practice, then they will help you maintain your mental health, really, and your positivity and your positive mindset, so that you can really be productive. And, you know, this is coming from a person who works on this all the time. Like, I'm working on my mental health every day, all the time. So if I work through them, there's 7, and I'll work through them as quickly as I can. So number 1 is be selfful. Now, when I was going through a rough time, people would say to me, Kate, you just need to be a bit more selfish. And it really didn't resonate with me at all, because to me, being selfish meant that I didn't care about anyone else. And I think as well, especially as a parent, you know, you're giving a lot of the time. There's a lot of output going on. You're making sure so-and-so's got to this place at this time, or that right at the moment, has that school email got to the right person in the household? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, what we doing next, that kind of thing. Does my husband know where my keys are, or those keys are that he needs later? So, you know, as a parent, you're managing all of those things. There's a lot of outputs going on. And Brene Brown says you can't give what you haven't got. And the whole idea of being selfful, I made it up as a word, is that you look after yourself so that you can care for those that you love. So it's got that, it's the put the mask on first thing. It's the put the oxygen mask on first, so that you can then put the oxygen mask on someone else. So practicing being selfful is on a daily basis. What are you doing for you today that means that you can look after someone else? And that could be, I've got 20 minutes to watch my favorite TV show on Netflix because that'll make me feel good. It could be, I've got to have a shower today, you know, whatever that is, or whatever it is that you need right now. Be selfful is number one. And that's my best, and that's my favorite one. It's the biggest one, really. Number two is called Accept the Now. And this is about, and we really saw it at the beginning of the lockdown, which was we really can't be looking way off into the future. We've got to bring it back to ourselves. This is one of the ways that I deal with FOMO and comparisonitis.
Oh,
like,
goodness,
stop looking out there, shift the focus, bring it back to now. What have you got? What are you working with? And in the self-help and this industry, we talk a lot about limiting beliefs, and you can bust through limiting beliefs. But the reality is life gives you limitations, and it's about not denying those limitations. It's about acknowledging what they are. And, you know, the limiting belief might be that I can't get any work right now, but the limitation is I can't walk out the house right now. You know, they're two different things, and you can, if you've got the resources and you can be resourceful, create the work for yourself in different ways, but you know you can't walk out the house. Do you know what I mean? There's a difference between limitations and limiting beliefs. And I think once we accept our limitations, that makes us really powerful. It's like our superpower. And you can't affect change unless you accept what's going on right now. Then you've got practice gratitude. This is an absolute practice. So even Oprah Winfrey has a gratitude journal that she fills in every single day. I believe it to be the lever upon which we can pull ourselves out of a funk. Because once you've accepted the now, that it's all those two sort of drift into each other, which is, you know, I've got a friend who suggested one time doing 50 things you're grateful for in the day. And he was like, I'm grateful for the fact I've opened my eyes, because if I didn't open my eyes, I'd be in a different place. I'm grateful for my phone because it means I can connect to people. I'm grateful for the fact that my bed has legs because otherwise I'd be sleeping on the floor. I'm grateful for the roof over my head. And when you start like that, you end up in a better place than, I can't get enough followers on Instagram. Do you know what I mean? It's like the difference between those two things. And I think, you know, social media is a big one, really, in that we are exposed to things going on elsewhere, and we are exposed to people doing brilliantly. But actually, if we can accept the now, pull the focus back in and start practicing gratitude regularly, those two things will really help in terms of maintaining your energy and your positivity. Number 4 is check your self-talk. So this is an area that I'm working on at the moment, because I have a coach, a business coach actually, and he and I, for the last 2 or 3 sessions, he's gone, you need to start writing I am statements and practice them every single day. And I'm like, yeah, cool. And then I come to write them and I go, oh, this is actually quite hard. So checking your self-talk is really important. We are very good at beating ourselves up about things mentally. We are very good at talking to ourselves in a way that we would never talk to a mate. You know, we are very good at going, that wasn't good enough. You always do that. That's the worst. You know, of course you would see it that way. You're so stupid, or you shouldn't have eaten that chocolate bar. You're never, ever going to get to where you want to be. You know, all of that stuff. Short term is catch that thought and flip it on its head. Long-term solution is practice every single day saying nice things to yourself, which is those I am statements that my coach is talking about. So at bare minimum, in your quiet moments, you should just be saying, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself over and over again. And that's one of the ways that Barry McDonough, who wrote the book, The Dare Response, about anxiety, that's one of his habits. He's like, you should absolutely be doing it every single day, because that's the only way you can make you feel better. And I told someone about it recently, and he was like, God, it sounds really thin and tinny and I don't believe it. And that's absolutely true. But if you keep saying it, it does come round. It does come round. It does come round. Shall I go on to number 5? Number 5 is make rainbows. Now, the point of this is, you can't get a rainbow without there being sunshine and rain. So if you're having a rainy time of it, things aren't great, put some sunshine on it and see what you get out of it. See what the lessons are. Try and find the positives. Even to the point where, you know, that moment where your other half comes to you and goes, right, I've done the kitchen, but where's this, that, and the other? And your brain goes, oh, for crying out loud, I've told him 4,000 times. Instead, it might be worth thinking something like, that is a sign that I've got this house in order and I'm great at this, you know. And so literally flipping it on its head, and just trying to, understanding. So the second part of it is it's understanding that life is meant to be messy. Like, it's supposed to be imperfect. If it feels pretty rubbish, then you're probably doing all the right things. So keep on going and make those rainbows, because if you're not messing up, you're not moving forward, really. And then number 6 is a big one for me. I call it rest, sleep, and recharge, but it is all about managing your energy, really. And the energy that I think we're really having to deal with at the moment is psychological, emotional energy. And, physical energy is fine. Like if you need energy, go for a run, right? Or if you know you're tired, you go for a sleep. And I'm a big one for resting and recharging because that's how you heal. When we're feeling tired at the end of the day, but we don't feel like we've actually moved anywhere or done anything, it's because we're having this emotional exhaustion. We're invested so emotionally in everything at the moment that actually we just find ourselves getting really tired. So that's why I've lent towards the rest, sleep, and recharge. Like, give yourself a break, go and have a nap if you need one, and especially with teenagers, like teenagers are built to sleep. They need to, they're growing and so much is going on in them. So if your kid is finding that 1 till 3 in the afternoon, they're sleeping, let them,
That's so
just let them, because actually, I mean, I have a bit of a rule, like if they're going to bed at midnight, 1 a.m, and they're falling asleep in the afternoon, they probably should be going to bed earlier, or certainly in my house, they'd be going to bed earlier. But if you feel that they're getting enough sleep, but they're still getting tired, just let them sleep, because actually they'll be better for it. And, we'll all find our own routines again when things get back to, in inverted commas, normal. So there's a lot of studying around teenagers needing sleep and their growth and how it impacts on their mental health and how actually, and I don't mean to say this, but, sometimes our regimes within schools can be counterproductive to that, because they have to be up early and they have to come home, be home at a certain time. But so if this is an opportunity for them to sleep, let them.
It's so funny listening to you talk like that, because as a teacher, I spend a lot of time in inverted commas, in normal life, going, sit up, wake up, come on, guys. And then because you do, you as a professional, the importance of sleep to teenagers. But it's really interesting to hear you bring that in as an element for them to stay positive as well, to use that sleep and that
but
time.
Also just that they'll learn, like, if you can make a rainbow out of this, there you go, then actually you've got a whole bunch of teenagers who've had the opportunity to grow in a way that they've not had the opportunity to grow. They wouldn't have had the opportunity to grow it before. And that's through rest and through sleep. So hopefully you can play this to the teenagers if you like, but and I'm sure they'll be going, see, I told you guys to have a sleep in the afternoon, or lying in really late. It's a really good thing. There is absolutely everything, there should be routine. There should be the lessons that we have to do things that we don't want to when we're older. So it's good to kind of, if you are flagging in your lesson, you need to be sitting up straight. But this is an opportunity for growth and development. And part of that can be sleep, I think. So, and then number 7, pillar of positivity. Number 7 is clear your mind. And this is just about getting rid of the junk. I don't know about you, but sometimes these days I'm quite sensitive to it. I can feel the adrenaline build up. I can feel the cortisol build up, and it often presents itself in me just getting agitated and my mind's full of anxiety. And that's what people are coming to me out of the community the most with, like out of the everyday positivity community. Anxiety is the biggest problem at the moment because there's so much uncertainty. So clear your mind is, however you choose to do that, you need to get rid of the trash that's in your head. For some people that's journaling. For some people that's doing crochet or knitting because they're focusing their mind. For some people that's meditation. For some people that's going for a run. So or a multitude of things. It might be cooking, it might be anything. And then that really plays back into the being selfful, which is doing things that you love to mean that you can look after those that you love. So those are really the 7 things. So 1 is be selfful, 2 is accept the now, 3 practice gratitude, 4 check your self-talk, 5 make them rainbows, 6 rest, sleep and recharge, and 7 clear your mind. And if you can do a little bit of some of those every day or weekly, then I think that you're putting yourself in a good place to be able to manage the stuff and the junk when it arrives. And I think it's worth pointing out that moving forward from today, and as things go back to, in inverted commas, normal, that's a change again, and that's going to be hard. And we've learned how to deal with change through going into lockdown. So it's kind of reflecting on that and working out what it is that you need to help you through the changes that are afoot.
What I love about what you said, Kate, is I think those pillars work on so many levels, and hopefully for people who listen to this podcast, whether they're teenagers, whether they're parents, whether they live alone, or whether they just fancy listening to something different, and hopefully everyone can find something in there. I know I've learned an awful lot in the last half hour. So thank you so much.
No, thank you for having us. And, I've been really impressed with the way that Chorlton High have been communicating with us as parents. So, big up to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work that you've been doing, because it hasn't gone unnoticed.
And thank you to our school families as well, because I think the resilience that everyone has shown has just been phenomenal. We are missing our students so much, and we can't wait to welcome them all back into the building as soon as we're allowed.
And ultimately, I constantly feel like I need to say to people, don't be hard on yourselves. Like, we are all coping with this in the way that we need to cope with it. So if you're adding shoulds onto your life, like, I should be doing more with so-and-so, I should be doing more schooling, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. It's not what you should be doing. Is actually cutting yourself some slack, because this is not easy. We are all boundaryless, and we are all doing things that we haven't had to do in the past, and we are all discovering things. So be open-minded, be open-hearted, and be kind to yourself.
And I cannot think of a better way to finish this podcast. So thank you so much, Kate Cocker and Everyday Positivity, for
thank you
taking part in our Beelong Festival.
You're welcome.